Good evening, everyone. Here to present the facilities budget for our 2023-24 school year. Everybody hear me? Good.
I hear you.
I usually like to start out a presentation going over our cost drivers, and one of our biggest cost drivers, utilities, is one of the things I don't really have much control over when it comes to utilities. Some of the other things we do, and then we know like our salaries, what they're gonna go up, is we kind of like that's contractual and what we're doing with that. So to start off, talk a little bit about electric. We get our electric through the New York Power Authority, and that's through a consortium down here in Westchester County for our area. So they source our electric, and it comes through Con Edison, but NYPA is the one that's hedging the bet and making the arrangements for the cost of that. So that's NYPA, solar. You're aware that some of our buildings have, or 5 of our buildings have solar arrays on top. And Con Edison, we have direct power from them, and we have our gas, which is in our electric code. Overall, the average electric cost we anticipate to increase in the upcoming year. With Con Ed, we're seeing a spike in like delivery surcharges, and we anticipate a slight production increase. We expanded about $388,000 to date, roughly December to end of December, on electric so far. We'll talk a little bit about our increases when I get to the budget spreadsheet and what our anticipated percentages from July. Projected utility budget for the 23-24, we're looking at about $813,000 for all said and done. If you remember, we're in the process of going through soliciting EPC. So we have Siemens is on board. They're going through the buildings. They've audited. And we're meeting with them, fine-tuning that so we can get that project hopefully up and running and get that through the state education department, and looking to do maybe some installation starting around this time next year and going into the next summer. And we're looking, one of the biggest things with that would be the LED, changing out the lighting throughout the district to LED lighting in the interior spaces, which would help with electrical costs. Solar, we're always looking at possibilities with that, and currently we're looking at the maintenance building, if there's anything we can do that for land-based array, or if there's some other thing that we can do along the lines with the EPC. So some of the solar data, just to refresh everyone's memory, 5 buildings are producing solar power. Solar power accounts for about 40% of the district's needs. And that fluctuates how much power we get out of it, depending on what kind of winter we have, what kind of summer we have, what kind of shadowing, what kind of rain, or et cetera, what goes on. So it fluctuates back and forth, but about 40%. We produced 5,900 megawatts since the inception in 2016. The 3 elementary schools operate primarily on solar. And Furnace Woods has the largest array, and that one I see basically kind of like runs on solar almost all year round, depending on the weather and the climate. So some of the other utilities that we have, fuel oil, it's on state contract, so OGS hedges that, and they bid that out with providers. The cost per gallon of oil has increased from last winter. Last year we've seen about $2.97 a gallon. This year it's up to $3.10 about around the same time. Our high was back in October. We were paying about $4.65 a gallon. We usually try to top off our tanks if we have money in the budget, so we can coast through and then start the next fall without filling our tanks. But last year, because the price of fuel was so high, we kind of let that go, and then we topped them off. We didn't top all of them off, but we topped off some of the tanks in the fall, whichever one's needed, because we anticipated that cost was going to come down during the school year. So again, we're playing with it to get by, so we do adjust and we do watch the cost and the trending that's going on. Fuel saving measure implemented, we are looking at the proposed EPC. We're always looking at making our buildings watertight, insulating different things, changing doors, looking above the roofs and the cavities above the ceilings to see if we need to do anything to insulate it to make it better weathertight so we can keep our buildings sealed. So we're looking at that through the EPC. Propane, we purchased that off the state contract as well. We've seen a decrease in cost from last year. from $2.10 to $1.81 a gallon at the same time. We don't use a lot of propane, but propane we use for our pilot lights in some of the buildings, and we also use it for cooking in some of the buildings where we don't have gas in those neighborhoods. Natural gas we get provided through Con Edison. Gas used in the cost increased slightly from last year. We expect gas price to increase slightly again in October 23-24. That brings us to the overall table here, the chart. You can see everything. Non-instructional salaries, we're looking to increase that by $202,000 or 6.7% increase. And what we're looking to do there is we're looking to add 4 custodian drivers back to the buildings that we lost for attrition over the years to increase our staff. And we would share that budget with transportation. So transportation would have half of that with the custodian bus drivers. And so half of that budget would come out of transportation and half of that budget would come out of facilities. Equipment is like if we need any large vacuums, large scrubbers, things, items, vehicles, we're looking to keep that about the same for the upcoming year. Contractual service, we're looking to decrease that about $20,000. That's some of the inspection services that we have to do in some of the buildings, and it fluctuates from year to year, which when we have to do inspections, when we don't, we're looking to decrease that by 12.5%. Insurance, we're looking to increase that about $4,000 to 12.2. That comes through our insurance carrier, NYSER, and they give those updates to Enrique, and he has those numbers for what we need to do. Maintenance contracts, we're looking to increase that by $2,000 or a 2.2% increase. Professional services stabilized, we're looking to keep that at 0. Materials and supplies, we're looking to increase that by about $6,000 or 2%. And that's kind of like, where you see your fuel increases, your fuel surcharges for different materials and supplies that I'm saying that are coming through, and the production for those materials and supplies that we're getting. The BOCES COSER, that one, we're adding it into my budget this year. Years past, because of when we added a lot of different COSERs, they're now going to come out of my budget. And those COSERs to be school group or work order process. We have Putnam Northern Westchester BOCES. We pay them to be our overall resource for safety and consulting. We have anonymous alerts. We have Raptor. And so all those things, now Alteris, they're going to come out of my budget. It's going to be reflected on my budget instead of coming out of somewhere else. Next one, we have oil. We're increasing that budget line by $5,200 or another 2%. Propane, as I was saying earlier, it's going to be about the same. Municipal water should stay about the same, 0%. Electric and gas. Our last year's budget was $665,000. We're increasing it to $813,000, or a 22.4% increase. We're expecting about a 10% increase from year to year, but last year we experienced a big spike in utility costs, and that's why you see the difference between the $665 and the $813 going to 22.4 instead of a 10% overall increase. And on the bottom, there's a little bit of a footnote, so you can see where we are currently with the 388 that I spoke about earlier, and what we anticipate that we would need to finish out this school year. To bring us about, I think it's $739,000 altogether. So that $739 for the $813 would be that roughly that 10% increase. Telephone, 0 to 0. Maintenance projects, we're looking to keep that $105,000. And security plan contractual, last year we had that in the 15. We're looking to bump that up to 20 or $5,000 or 33.2% increase. Overall, we have a $209,000 increase or 7.9%. I know it's coming along there.
So I just have one question on the finances. So there's a line item for professional services for $120,000. So what is that for?
So professional services would be like architectural services and some of the inspections that they have to do. So it'd be architectural, engineering, and things of that nature.
And what was the actual spend from last year? Because it seems like the budget's unchanged.
Last year, we've actually exhausted the $120,000.
Okay, and what was that on?
So that was on architectural services for, that we have a AVI, annual visual inspection, we had a BCS that we did in last year, but it was in the BCS, it was kind of like the order of the buildings to set us up for capital projects. We also, the BV cafeteria
Yep.
with the professional services involved with that.
And we think we're gonna have the same level of work this year, or it just seems like it's unchanged?
I think so, I think because of some of the other things that are coming up down the pike. And
Okay, cool. And the last thing, on the solar arrays, just to confirm, and I think you answered this for me before, but if we were to lose power, the schools would not be able to operate on the solar arrays
Correct.
off-grid, correct?
They make you take them out of service because they don't want to backfeed the system, backfeed their poles inadvertently, and electrify someone on the pole.
Okay.
One of the things we did look into, and what I looked into a while back, was doing a battery backup system. So then you could charge the battery system and then use that battery system. And at that point in time, it wasn't as efficient. Now they're getting to be more efficient. And the answers that I was getting back then, I didn't like the answers of, and the cost for it. So as they become more economically viable, I think that's something that we should look into and do like a battery backup system. And then the solar panels would charge that.
Yeah.
And then you would deplete them and use them and deplete them, just like you would do in your home.
Yep.
Same type of system.
Yeah, no, that would be great. Thanks.
Go ahead. You first. The BOCES combined services, the $40,000, my favorite question. So where will we see the corresponding decrease? Do you know, or do you know, Enrique? If it's new to his budget, where is it gonna be reflected on?
Some of these used to come from my budget, but mainly this 40,000 is part of the security.
Yeah, most of it's like Alteris. So Alteris we pay too, but and like Enrique said, he used to come out of his budget, but it should be reflected somewhere.
No, I get why they're moving. I'm just trying to look at the big picture
Yes,
and
so
understand.
that's right. For example, some of the radios, because we listen in the middle of the year, they used to come out of
Well, that's
police.
the other one, that's security equipment
okay.
contractual, that's why we.
You're right.
The 5,000 is
Um,
there,
But for example, this 40,000, we're talking about Alteros, we're talking about Amanda,
Yeah.
we're talking about
Our motions consultant, which that cost increased over the last several years. So again, it's just the correct reflection of where it should be, but I understand what you're saying, where was it before to be now? So Enrique used to do that, it is.
So it used to be out of my budget and I would transfer it to the BOCES codes.
Okay.
So if you look at my budget, there's not an increase, maybe there's a decrease. Yeah.
Okay.
But BOCES, we need to look at BOCES a little bit better because every year we're overexpending BOCES in general. So
was that?
I agree with you. I mean, for example, today I had to transfer $18,000 to be able to pay BOCES. Last year, Margaret, Joe, and I had a conversation because a lot of the BOCES that came out of Margaret's account, and Margaret was saying, no, this is not mine, so we're fixing that problem little by little.
Okay, but when I see a big jump like that, I'm just trying to
Yes.
account for where it's coming and going from.
Yes.
And then the other question about the increase, so you have 4 new part-time positions?
No.
No, I didn't understand that.
Yes.
Okay,
They're
Okay.
full-time individuals, but half of their cost will come out of my budget, and the other half will come out of transportation, only because we get aid on when they're driving.
No,
Well, part of it.
not only because we
That's a part of
we
it.
get aid, but because a person is a custodian driver.
right.
So we always divide their salary half as a custodian and have as a driver.
Okay, so this isn't a new practice.
No, this has been going on.
Okay, the footnote was just confusing, that's all. Okay, thank
Yeah,
you,
It's just
Yes.
a correct reflection of where they're working for.
Exactly.
thank you.
Anything else?
Anybody else?
Thank you, all. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.